Hey everybody, Jason Blaha here. It's time for part 3 of the Monday Q&A, so let's get to it. Are hammer curls enough to build bicep mass? If one cannot do traditional curls due to intense wrist forearm pain, or is there a way to work around the wrist pain? Thanks, Jason. No, a hammer curl does stimulate the bicep, but not nearly as much as traditional curls or even a weighted chin-up does. The primary movers are the brachialis, the small muscle that runs under here, and the radial brachialis, this muscle on the top of the forearm. So no, it doesn't stimulate it as much as you might like there. It's not efficient for direct bicep development. Now, if you're having wrist and forearm pain, I can almost promise you 9 times out of 10, it's because you're doing a wrist curl. You're letting your wrist curl up at some point during your curl, takes stress off the bicep, puts it on the wrist and the forearm. What you need to do to solve this when you're curling, let your wrist trail behind your forearm just a few degrees on your curls. And if you can learn to do this on any of your curling motions, it should go away. The only other thing that can also cause this is if you're using a grip that is too wide or too narrow with a bar for your particular muscle insertions and structure. And so that can also cause it. So adjust the grip width also if the trailing the wrist doesn't completely solve it. But when you go to dumbbells, that wrist trailing should solve the issue. And if you're still feeling forearm pain up here afterwards doing that, then you've got an inflamed bicep tendon. So it's time for you to take a deload. All right, next question. What do you think about replacing bent over barbell rows with dumbbell rows in your novice program? I asked this after seeing Candito's video. I happen to like Johnny Candito, but I've not seen this video in question. And I will put this bluntly. If I thought that one-arm dumbbell rows would have been a better choice for my novice program, I would have put them in there. And I would have modified the program. I didn't do that. Now the reason for this is that I'm not trying to isolate a bunch of muscles in this program. This novice program is built around using compound movements that work as much core as possible, as much posterior chain as possible, and have you standing as much as possible. You had to have noticed at some point that I've got you doing squats, deadlifts, standing presses, standing barbell rows, and even shrugs. I am trying to put a lot of stress on all your stabilizers in your core because these are generally weak links for the novice, and oftentimes for the intermediate these are underdeveloped, and it hurts their performance and their safety as they get stronger on some of the big movements. And so I'm trying to develop that as much as possible. And between the fact that if you go look through the program carefully and listen to the video, I've actually got people doing chin-ups if they're strong enough to do them on every other curl day instead of doing curls every session, and actually graduating to weighted chin-ups. So you effectively have 3 different big back movements. And so your back is certainly not getting any lack in stimulation. And I see one-arm dumbbell rows is more useful for the intermediate type bodybuilder. I would much rather see the novice stick to the heaviest compound movements possible to stimulate as many different muscles as possible early on. All right, last question in part 3. Why do I have trouble sleeping at night on every workout day? I don't use any pre-workout. Well, there's 2 possible things here. It is either a medical or psychological issue, or it is related to your training. Now, if it's related to your training and it's due to chronic overreaching, you're going to see other signs besides insomnia. You're going to see elevated blood pressure, you're going to see elevated resting heart rate, and before long, you're going to start getting intense muscle cramping the day of and day after you train, and you're going to start seeing a decline in performance. All of your lifts are going to start going down. Your 225 for 5 bench press is going to turn into your 1 rep max before long, in which case you need to deload. Now, if that doesn't seem to be it and you don't have these other symptoms and other problems, then it is medical or psychological related, and you need to consult the appropriate type of professional, because it could be a medical issue, it could be stress, it could be a hormone imbalance, it could be something else going on. And someone who is an athletic professional is not necessarily going to be able to help you with that. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I will talk to you in part 4, but let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go.